Revealed, how a lonely CEO's heartwarming act transformed a shivering nurse and her baby's life. Tom sat in his sprawling office, the city covered in snow outside his window, a single light illuminating his relentless work on the computer. Despite outward success as the CEO of a booming tech firm, his heart felt heavy beneath the burden of his own loneliness. Employees dashed out the door long before, their laughter and chatter drifting down the hall, leaving him wrapped in the sterile hum of machinery and flickering screens. He watched the world from his high rise, but it all felt so distant. Then he overheard them talking. Voices drifted in and out of the break room, tales of struggles that gnawed at his heart. Families, responsibilities, bills to pay, and dreams deferred, they echoed like haunting refrains. Yet amongst their conversations, a name struck him: Sarah. A nurse, devoted yet burdened, juggling late shifts and a newborn daughter. Theirs were stories tangled in hardship. One frigid evening, a moment of serendipity presented itself. As he left the office, Tom spotted her through the snowy haze. There she was, bundled in tattered layers, cradling a tiny bundle in her arms. Her eyes glimmered with resolve but were clouded with a depth of sorrow he recognized all too well. Memories flashed before him, teachings from his father about compassion, about helping others, igniting a flicker of purpose in his heart. Tom mustered his courage. What if he could change her life? A warm meal, essential supplies, simple acts that might ease her burden. He pieced together a small basket filled with groceries and heartfelt notes, hoping to bring a spark of warmth into her chill. His intentions were pure, but Sarah's skepticism crushed him. She hesitated, pride intertwining with vulnerability as she regarded him. "Why are you doing this?" she questioned, her guarded tone betraying her fear. Before Tom could find words, life threw another curveball. A shriek echoed from the parking lot, a hopeless sound piercing through the stillness. Sarah's old car coughed, sputtered, then gave up altogether, a cruel betrayal that laid bare their economic divide. Tom felt the tightening in his chest, awareness dawning like a chill breeze. This wasn't just a moment, the stakes were far higher than he realized. Hurdles stood between them now, bridging the gap of their circumstances. A connection began to blossom amidst their shared uncertainties, but the weight of their realities hung heavy. He saw her panic, a mother's desperation reflected in her eyes. A bond had begun to intertwine their lives, yet would both of them muster the courage to accept it? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Tom stood at a crossroads, the lights of the city flickering as if waiting for his decision. The loneliness that had shadowed his success now felt like a heavier cloak. Would he step into the fray, challenge the societal norms that pinned him down, and become a champion for all the struggling souls around him? And could Sarah find trust in a stranger from a world so different from her own? As they stared at each other, hope glimmered against the stark winter dark, teasing the possibility of something profound, but could mere kindness bridge the divides that isolated them both? Tom took a deep breath, his heart racing as he weighed his options. The impulse to help surged within him like a warm current, but Sarah's eyes flickered with uncertainty. He could sense the wall she had built around herself, brick by brick, forged from disappointment and the weight of survival. "Listen," he finally said, his voice breaking the tension. "I know this might feel strange. But I just want to help you. I've been where you are in need of a little kindness." He stepped closer, the snow crunching underfoot, as if inviting her to see his sincerity. Sarah stood still, cradling her baby tighter. She felt the instinctual pull of her pride battling against the desperate need for support. "It's not that simple," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't need charity. I need to figure this out on my own." Tom nodded, the truth of her words hitting home. He remembered times in his life when he felt just as vulnerable. "I get it," he said softly. "You want to stand on your own 2 feet. But sometimes, we all need a hand. It doesn't make you weak, it just makes you human." With these words, the silence shifted. A small breach opened in her fortress. Tom could see her barriers begin to tremble, if only for a moment. But then, stubborn tears welled in her eyes. She turned away, not wanting him to witness how close to cracking she felt. "I'm just scared," she whispered to the cold night air, revealing a vulnerability that resonated painfully with Tom. Taking a cautious step closer, Tom offered her a smile, filled with genuine warmth. "Me too, scared and lonely. It's how I've lived for a while now. But maybe we can face it together. You don't have to take everything I offer. Just let me be here." He held out the basket, fingers trembling slightly with hope. The flicker of change began to ignite. In that moment, Sarah glanced back at Tom, her expression a cocktail of hesitation and wonder. The sincerity of a stranger's offer pierced through her defenses just enough for seeds of trust to take root. The landscape around them seemed to pause, the city lights twinkling as if holding their breath, expecting an answer. After what felt like a lifetime, she took a hesitant step forward, reaching for the basket with a trembling hand. "Thank you," she mumbled, but her voice betrayed a mix of gratitude and fear. As she accepted the basket, Tom felt a rush of relief and purpose flooding through him. The divide between them felt a little less insurmountable. But even in that moment, shadows of uncertainty loomed over them. Could he really help her, or was this just a fleeting moment that would melt away with the snow? "What happens next?" Sarah asked, her voice barely loud enough to carry over the wind. Tom smiled, ignited by the connection sparking between them. "You let me help, and I promise to find a way for you and your baby to have a better tomorrow. We'll take it one step at a time." Her gaze softened, searching his face for the honesty he had shown, wrestling with inner turmoil, pride, and fear. But as the snow began to fall heavier, so did the reality of their intertwined fates. At that moment, the air crackled with a new kind of tension. One that promised change, but also uncertainty. Would they both be brave enough to step into the unknown together? What would it mean to truly open their hearts to one another in a world so quick to close doors? As they stood together in the swirling snow, the city's pulse throbbing behind them, the implications of their connection began to unfold like a fragile flower pushing through frozen ground. Would they nurture it, or let the cold extinguish its bloom? Tom watched as Sarah took the basket, her fingers brushing against his, and a jolt of warmth surged through him. The first threads of connection were forming, fragile and tentative, like the thin ice on a puddle. He wanted to reach out further, to pull her closer, but the weight of her fear hung heavily in the air. "Let us find somewhere warm," he suggested, not wanting the moment to slip away. It was a simple idea, but the city was vast, and everything felt daunting. The streets were unfamiliar to him, and Sarah's unease was palpable. "Where?" she asked, her voice tight, but there was a hint of curiosity. "There's a diner a few blocks over," he replied, trying to sound cheerful. "Best coffee in town. I'll buy you both breakfast." The thought of food softened the edges of her expression. Hunger only further amplified her vulnerability, and as she looked down at the baby in her arms, uncertainty clouded her eyes once again. "I don't want to be a burden," she murmured, the battle within her still fierce. "You won, TB. You're doing the hardest thing there is, already trying to take care of your baby. Let me help with that." Tom took a half step back, inviting her to move forward, giving her space while still keeping his offer open. Finally, after a long moment, Sarah exhaled and nodded slowly. "Okay." Together, they began to walk through the snow, each crunch underfoot echoing the tension hanging between them. The streetlights glowed through the storm, casting a hazy light on their faces. Tom stole glances at her, hoping to catch a glimpse of her thoughts. The way she held her baby, the slight tremor in her hands, it revealed layers of emotion he wanted to explore. "How old is your baby?" he asked, breaking the silence, desperate to divert her thoughts from uncertainty to warmth. 6 months, she answered, a little smile creeping in. Her name is Lily. Lily, he repeated, feeling the name settle in his heart. A beautiful name. Thank you, she replied, her lips curving more as she glanced at him. It was a flicker of hope that made his heart flutter. As they reached the diner, the smell of fresh coffee and baked goods wrapped around them like a hug. Tom held the door open, and for a moment, Sarah lingered just outside, as if afraid to step into the warmth. Come on, he encouraged gently. You're safe here. With one final deep breath, she crossed the threshold into the inviting glow of the diner. Tom followed, the warmth enveloping them both. They found a table by the window, the view of the falling snow transforming into a winter wonderland. As they settled in, their voices mingled with the clattering of dishes and the laughter of patrons. Each moment shared over steaming cups of coffee chipped away at the walls Sarah had built. The tension between them began to feel more like anticipation. So, what's your story? Tom asked, curious and hopeful as he took a sip of coffee, ready to listen. Why do you care? Sarah asked, a defensive edge creeping back in, but there was a hint of vulnerability beneath the surface. Because I see you, he replied simply, and in that raw honesty, the air around them shifted again. In Sarah's eyes, something flickered, a glimmer of the possibility that unfolded like a flower, ready to bloom. But just as hope began to swell, the door swung open, and an unexpected figure stepped in, casting a long shadow over their moment. Sarah. A voice called out, filled with authority and concern. Tom's heart sank. Would this new arrival shatter the fragile bond they had started to build? What secrets from her past would rise with that single word? Sarah's body stiffened as she turned to face the voice, her eyes wide with shock. Tom's heart raced, sensing the shift. The warmth of the diner, once so comforting, now felt charged with anxiety. Joel, she breathed, the name barely a whisper, laced with fear and something deeper, something like regret. A tall man moved toward their table with purpose. His dark overcoat contrasted sharply with the bright color of the diner, and his face bore a stern expression that sent chills down Tom's spine. He was someone who demanded attention, and he got it, definitely. Where have you been? Joel pressed, the urgency in his tone unmistakable. I've been looking everywhere for you. Sarah glanced back at Tom, her expression pleading. It was as though she silently asked for his help, but what could he do? This was a personal storm she needed to navigate. I just needed some time, she stuttered, the defiance in her voice quivering. I needed to think, to figure things out. Figure things out? Joel's voice thundered, and Tom felt the diner's eyes shift to them. You're out here with a baby in the cold. This isn't figuring things out. This is running away. Tom felt protective instincts flare up within him. He stood, a little defiantly, as Joel's gaze switched to him, scrutinizing him as if trying to see what he was made of. Maybe she just needed a moment, Tom said, trying to keep his voice steady. We were having breakfast. Joel interrupted sharply, his focus back on Sarah. Is that what you call this? Hiding out here with a stranger? The accusation hung heavily in the air. Tom could feel tension crackling like a wire pulled too tight. Sarah shifted Lily closer to her, her grip tightening, a gesture that told Tom just how fragile she felt. He's not a stranger, she replied, the quiet defiance threading through her voice. He's just being kind. Something you don't understand. Kind? You have no idea who he is, Sarah. Joel blurted, his words filled with disdain. This isn't a fairy tale. You can't just run away with a baby and expect everything to be fine. The indignation in Sarah's eyes flared for a moment, and Tom wanted to reach for her hand, to reassure her that she was safe, but the moment was slipping away. He could feel the eyes of the diner patrons on them, the atmosphere thickening with each passing second. Joel, please, she begged, her composure faltering. I'm doing my best for Lily. Your best. Joel scoffed, the condescension evident. You're only making things worse. Before Tom could respond, Sarah's expression shifted from fear to determination. Don't you dare tell me what is worse for my daughter, she said, her voice now stronger. The fire inside her began to ignite, pushing back against the shadow Joel cast. Tom watched in awe as she reclaimed her voice, the very voice he had heard quiver moments before. It stirred something within him, like watching a flower break through the frost. Just then, Lily let out a soft coo, her tiny fingers reaching up toward her mother. The sweetness of the moment sliced through the heated exchange, drawing everyone's attention back momentarily. See? Sarah continued, her gaze locked onto Joel. She knows when I'm scared, and I won't let that dictate my choices anymore. But Joel's face hardened, and tension rippled between them. You think you can do this alone? He challenged. There are consequences. Tom felt like he was standing at the edge of a cliff, the winds of uncertainty whipping around him. What consequences? What did he not know about the situation? Just before Sarah could respond, the door swung open again, and in walked a figure with a confident gait. A woman, dressed in a business suit, radiated authority. Tom's instincts prickled. Who was she? And how would she tip the balance of this already delicate moment? Would this new arrival change the course of their lives forever, or would it deepen the conflict spinning out of control? The questions weighed heavily as he watched, his heart racing in sync with Sarah's rising tension. The woman strode confidently, her heels clicking sharply against the diner's linoleum floor, drawing eyes as she approached the tense scene. Tom noticed the way her presence seemed to magnetize attention, the air sharp with anticipation. Sarah shifted uncomfortably, a mix of concern and confusion flashing across her face. Excuse me, the newcomer spoke, her voice smooth and authoritative, slicing through the atmosphere like a knife. Is everything all right here? Joel's attention snapped to her, his frustration momentarily paused. This doesn't concern you, he replied, dismissively. But the woman wasn't deterred. I believe it does, she insisted, her gaze unwavering. I couldn't help but overhear. She then looked at Sarah, her eyes softening somehow. Are you okay? Tom felt a glimmer of hope as he watched Sarah's demeanor shift again, this time calming. I'm trying to be, she murmured, uncertainty still lacing her voice. The woman smiled gently. It can be challenging, can't it? It was a simple statement, yet it held a depth that resonated. Tom felt the tension slightly ease, even amidst Joel's simmering anger. Who are you? Joel asked, arms crossed, clearly unimpressed. This doesn't involve you, lady. It does involve me if someone's well-being is at stake, she replied, her tone firm. I'm Andrea, the CEO of a local health nonprofit that supports women and children in need. I know how difficult this can be. Tom's brow lifted in surprise. He hadn't expected someone so high-powered to be here, let alone care about a situation unfolding so explosively in a diner. Is that what you do? Sarah asked, both curious and suspicious. You just swoop in and save people? Andrea's smile remained, free from any hint of judgment. Not save. Support. Joel scoffed, rolling his eyes. You think she needs your charity? Maybe she just needs options, Andrea countered, her voice steady as she turned towards Sarah again. I can help you explore what's best for you and Lily. Sarah's gaze shifted to the tiny girl nestled in her arms. Hope sparked in her tired eyes, but uncertainty flickered right alongside it. What do you mean? She asked quietly. There are resources available. Counseling, safe havens, job training. It could help you take control of your life, Andrea explained, her tone encouraging. The contrast between Andrea's calm assurance and Joel's raging frustration was stark. Tom could feel the tension vibrating through the air, but he sensed something shifting. That might be great, but the world doesn't just hand out solutions, Joel protested, his voice rising again. You can't just throw money at problems and expect everything to work out. Sometimes, it's about hearing what someone needs, Andrea replied, holding Joel's fierce gaze. It can make all the difference. In that moment, Tom felt the weight of every word. Wasn't he that what Sarah had been searching for all along? A voice that understood her struggle. He noticed the steel in Sarah's spine, the way her confidence was slowly building with each exchange. Maybe I don't need a savior, she said, voice steadying. I need a plan. I need families to support each other, to have real options. Those words hung in the air, and Tom could see the flicker of determination growing in her. This was pivotal not just for her, but for anyone who'd been pinned down by circumstances beyond their control. As Joel's face darkened with anger, Andrea stepped closer to Sarah, the two women creating an unspoken bond. Let us figure this out together, Andrea urged softly. You have the strength to face whatever comes next. You just need to know you're not alone. Lily cooed again, her eyes sparkling as she watched the exchange. For a brief moment, that peace in her gaze bridged the growing storm between the adults, but Joel wasn't ready to back down. You think this is all so simple? He shouted, demeanor radiating with a frantic energy. You're making a mistake, Sarah. Trusting her before he could finish, Andrea interrupted firmly, no more threats. Sarah deserves to have her choices respected by you and by anyone else. As the room held its breath, the tension was palpable. Tom could feel the ties of fate weaving around them, and he questioned whether they could break free from the chains of their pasts. Would Sarah find her way to a new beginning, or would the weight of her past continue to loom over her? The air felt thick with unspoken possibilities, the future clinging just out of reach. What would Sarah choose? And how would her decision shape the lives of those around her? Silence hung heavily in the diner, the chatter from regulars suddenly muffled, as if the whole world had paused to listen. Sarah held her breath, a fragile coil of hope and fear tightly wrapped around her heart. She looked into Andrea's steady eyes and felt a surge of something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in a long time. Possibility. Joel's expression twisted into a frown, disbelief mixed with anger. You think you can just come here and swoop in? This isn't some fairy tale where everything works out in the end. You don't know her. You don't know us. The bitterness dripped from every word. Tom felt a knot form in his stomach. This wasn't just about Sarah anymore. It was about every single person who had ever felt trapped, every woman who had ever needed a moment of clarity. He wanted to stand up and say something, to counter Joel's venomous tone, but the words clung to his throat. You're right, Andrea said calmly, facing Joel unflinchingly. I don't know you, or your history. But I do know that people need each other to heal. It's not about saving someone, it's about being there, providing options. She turned back to Sarah, her voice softening. What if we could start with one small step? What do you want? For a heartbeat, Sarah was lost in thought. She had spent so long viewing her world through a lens of survival that she hadn't dared to dream. Everything felt overwhelming, the weight of Joel's words pressed down like a lead blanket, stifling. I want the words tumbled out, raw and real. I want to feel safe. I want Lily to have a future, one that doesn't include fear or uncertainty. Andrea nodded, a flicker of understanding in her eyes. That's a start. Safety can come in many forms, even in knowledge and community. There's a network of support waiting for you. But I can't just change everything overnight, Sarah said, her voice shaking. I'm scared. What if it doesn't work? In life, there are no guarantees, Andrea replied gently. But taking that first step is what counts. You don't have to do this alone. I'll be right here with you. A surge of doubt washed over Sarah. Could she truly believe things could change? What would Joel do if she decided to take that leap? The thought of confronting him made her stomach churn. Joel's voice broke through her spiraling thoughts. So this is what it's come to. You're really going to listen to a stranger instead of me? His frustration crackled in the air like static, threatening to ignite at any moment. "It's not about you, Joel," Sarah said, surprising herself with her own strength. "It's about me and Lily. You've spoken for long enough. It's time for me to find my own voice." Tom felt the atmosphere shift, energy coursing through the diner as if they were somehow all connected in this moment. Something had changed. Sarah no longer seemed like a bird trapped in a cage. She was looking at the door, ready to open it, ready to fly. "I will explore those options," she continued, meeting Joel's furious gaze head-on. "I need to find out what support is out there for us. You can either choose to be part of this journey or not. That's your decision." Andrea smiled, pride shining through her features. "That's the spirit, Sarah. Just remember, your choices are your own. Don't let anyone, especially not someone afraid of losing control, take that away." But Joel, his anger boiling over, stepped closer, fists clenched. "You're making a mistake," he hissed. "You can't just walk away from everything we've built." The tension bristled in the air again, hearts pounding and breaths held in anticipation. In that moment, Sarah realized this was more than choosing a path for herself. It was about breaking free from the chains of her past, accepting her own power to decide, and making choices that would shape her future. Would she take the leap into the unknown despite the fear? And if so, what would that mean for the complicated web of relationships surrounding her? As eyes turned toward her, she felt a rush of adrenaline, a sense of something awakening deep within. What lay on the other side of this choice? The diner's atmosphere thickened with palpable tension, each gaze locked tight, awaiting Sarah's next move. The flickering fluorescent light struggled against the shadows creeping in, casting an erratic dance on the walls. Sarah's heart raced, each thud echoing with a sense of urgency as she weighed her next words. She knew what Joel was trying to do, to pull her back into the suffocating confines of their relationship. A symptom of his control, it felt like trying to breathe through a tight mask. But she was done living for him, or for fear. "Joel," she began, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside. "You keep saying it's about what we've built, but what about what I need? What about Lily?" His brows knitted in disbelief, and for a fleeting moment, Sarah saw the younger version of him, the man who once made her laugh, the man she thought would always be by her side. But that man had faded, overtaken by anger and a possessive shadow of idealism. A rush of sorrow clutched at her heart. "I love you, Sarah," he said, desperation lacing his voice, a last-ditch effort to reclaim the ground slipping from under him. "It's not enough," she whispered, her breath hitching. There was a finality to those words. It felt like a door slamming shut on a chapter she was ready to leave behind. Andrea reached out gently, a supportive presence grounding her amidst the storm. "You're so much stronger than you realize," she said, her voice a soothing melody cutting through the chaos. The diners began to murmur, the shockwave of Sarah's declaration rippling across the room. Tom observed the scene unfold with a mix of hope and prayer, waiting for Sarah to catch her breath. She needed this moment. They all did. Joel stepped closer, anger flaring in his eyes. "So this is the thanks I get? After everything? You don't get to decide that anymore," Sarah shot back, her voice rising with newfound strength. "You've placed your needs above Lily's for too long." A wave of silence washed over the diner again, tension hanging like smoke in the air. Faces turned towards them, caught between admiration and disbelief, each person absorbing the weight of what Sarah had just done. It was a moment of reckoning, not just for her, but for everyone trapped in their own cycles of fear. Finally, Sarah pushed away the doubts that had plagued her and took a deep breath. She could feel the tightness in her chest loosening, like a breath of fresh air after being underwater. "I'm ready to figure this out, with or without you." Joel's patience unraveled, his fists still clenched, his frustration spilling over. "You'll regret this," he snarled, teeth gritted. "No, I won't," she said, conviction clear in her eyes. "You've been the voice that always drowned mine, but I won't let that happen anymore. I deserve a chance, and so does Lily. Tears brimmed in her eyes, a mix of relief and fear, but there was something else, too. A glimmer of hope, a shining thread of possibility. As she turned to Andrea, seeking validation, she felt the firm grip of support solidifying around her. It wasn't just Andrea. It was everyone here, witnessing a moment of empowerment. Just as she started to comprehend the magnitude of her decision, a realization struck hard. The diner door swung open with a loud clatter, and in strolled an unexpected figure, her sister, Megan. Eyes wide with concern, catching the atmosphere instantly. "Oh, Sarah, I got your message. I had to come." Megan's entrance changed everything. The past few months had strained their relationship, built on misunderstandings. But now, as their gazes locked, Sarah felt an unfamiliar flicker of warmth. It was a moment of truth. Would Megan stand by her side, or would the wounds of the past deepen further? In a world that felt unmoored, Sarah breathed deeper. The journey was just beginning, and every choice would lead her closer to the life she longed for. As questions raced in her mind, the final thought echoed larger in her heart: if she could finally break free, could they heal together as sisters? Megan stepped further inside, her expression shifting from concern to determination as she took in the scene. The diner, with its faded linoleum and the hum of conversation, suddenly felt small and suffocating again. Sarah could see her sister's mind racing, dissecting the tension radiating from every corner. "Megan!" Sarah called, her voice barely above a whisper, laced with relief and something else, hope. Megan didn't hesitate. She rushed to Sarah's side, enveloping her in a warm embrace. The smell of her sister's perfume, mingled with the faint scent of coffee, wrapped around Sarah like a blanket. "I got here as fast as I could. Are you okay?" Joel shifted uncomfortably, jealousy flickering in his eyes. "This isn't your fight, Megan," he snapped, like a dog marking his territory. Megan didn't flinch. "It is when it's about my sister and my niece," she shot back, standing taller, her voice strong. Seeing the steel in her sister's gaze sparked something inside Sarah, a flicker of unity was igniting. "It's about so much more than that," Sarah said, her voice lifting. "It's about me finally choosing myself, and Lily." The murmurs in the diner swelled, a mixture of curiosity and support. People were leaning in, straining to catch every word. It felt surreal, standing in the eye of a storm, especially with Megan's presence amplifying her courage. "Let us step outside," Megan suggested, her eyes softening as she glanced back at Joel. "We need to talk." Sarah nodded, feeling the weight of the moment still hanging in the air. With one last look at Joel, she turned to follow Megan outside, the cool breeze greeting them like an old friend. It took a moment for her eyes to adjust to the dim light outside, away from the buzzing diner. "Megan," Sarah began, but her sister cut her off gently. "First, let us just breathe for a minute. This is a lot." They stood on the pavement, the late afternoon light casting long shadows. Sarah watched her sister, trying to gauge how Megan felt about all that had just unfolded. "I'm scared," Sarah admitted, her voice trembling. "Things might never go back to how they were, and that terrifies me." Megan nodded, her face softening. "I get that. But maybe that's a good thing. Maybe this is a chance to finally move forward." Sarah felt tears welling up again. "What if it doesn't work? What if I lose you too?" "You won't lose me. We're family, remember? No matter how many mistakes we've made, we can heal together." Their eyes locked, a silent understanding passing between them. It was in that moment that Sarah felt the old scars beginning to stitch themselves together. Yet, the fear still clung to her like a heavy weight. "What about Joel?" she asked, glancing back toward the diner, where he remained watching. The chaos might be temporary, but the implications of her decisions were now irrevocable. "Forget him for a moment," Megan urged. "This is about us. We need to tackle one obstacle at a time." Taking a deep breath, Sarah nodded. Together, they turned back toward the diner, finding strength in one another. The noise from inside swelled into a cacophony of lives intertwined, but outside, they were cocooned in a moment of clarity. As they crossed the threshold back into the diner, Sarah felt a renewed sense of purpose. It wasn't just about breaking free from Joel, it was about rebuilding her bond with Megan and being the mother she needed to be for Lily. But just as they re-entered, a figure darted past them, someone Sarah never expected to see again. The buzzing chatter faded as recognition hit her like a punch to the gut. Mom. The weight of unfinished conversations loomed before them. What would come next could change everything. Would they be ready to confront their past together? Sarah felt her breath catch in her throat. Her mother stood there, pale and weathered, as if time had etched its stories onto her face. Memories flooded back, a whirlpool of childhood laughter mixed with shadows of abandonment. She hadn't seen her mother in years, and the sight of her now sent a jolt of mixed emotions rippling through Sarah. Megan, I don't think I can do this, she murmured, feeling the weight of uncertainty wash over her. Megan squeezed Sarah's hand, grounding her. You can. You're stronger than you know. Taking a hesitant step toward her mother, Sarah felt as if she was walking through fog. Why are you here? She managed, her heart pounding as she spoke. After all this time? Her mother's eyes brightened with unshed tears, guilt and longing battling behind them. I didn't know how to face you. I made so many mistakes, she stammered, her voice cracking. I came because I heard about Lily. I wanted to see you both. Every word struck Sarah like a second punch. Could she trust this woman, the one who had walked away from her, leaving her with memories full of heartache? All those years of dreaming, of hoping for some sort of closure, it had never come until now. What do you expect, Mom? Sarah felt anger bubbling to the surface, clashing with the yearning for reconciliation. You can't just waltz back into my life. No, I can't, her mother replied, her tone filled with regret. But I've tried to change. I've been going to meetings, working on myself. I want to make things right. Tension crackled in the air, thick as molasses. Sarah looked at Megan, who was watching her mother with guarded sympathy. What do you think, Meg? She whispered, torn between wanting to yell and wanting to embrace the person who had once been her mother. Megan shuffled closer, her eyes probing Sarah's. You don't have to forgive her right now. Just listen, okay? This is your choice. Your life. Just as Sarah opened her mouth to respond, a little voice piped up from the entrance of the diner. Mommy? It was Lily, her small face filled with innocence and confusion. The sight of her daughter holding a crumpled paper in hand brought Sarah back to the present. Here was the heart of her determination, her reason for fighting. Panic flickered in her mother's eyes as she locked onto the child. That she's beautiful, she breathed, a hint of wonder breaking through her despair. Lily, this is Grandma, Sarah said, voice low but steady. The word felt heavy on her tongue, filled with unspoken possibilities. Lily looked between her mother and the unfamiliar woman. Can she come play with me? She tilted her head, innocent in her query. The world around Sarah slowed as she grappled with the reality of Lily's question. Could she really allow her child to interact with the woman who had caused so much pain? A whirlwind of emotions roared in her chest, threatening to spill over. Mom, I don't know. Sarah said carefully, her heart racing as fear mingled with a whisper of hope. Is this something we can even discuss? A flicker of resolve ignited in her mother's eyes. I want to try. I know I can't change the past, but I'd like to be part of your lives if you'll let me. As silence enveloped them, Sarah's heart raced with uncertainty. This could be a new beginning, or it could unravel everything she had built. Looking at Megan, she took a step forward, the decision teetering on her lips. Maybe we can try, but before she could finish, the diner's door swung open, and a familiar face stepped inside, a soaked jacket clinging to his frame. Joel. His eyes widened in shock as he spotted them. What is going on? he demanded, the air thick with tension. Sarah felt her heart drop. Could this confrontation really become a battlefield? As they stood at the precipice of a family reunion punctured by emotional chaos, Sarah braced herself. Did she truly have the strength to face it all? Sarah stood between her past and future, emotions swirling like the snow outside. She felt the weight of uncertain possibilities pressing down on her shoulders. Her mother's appearance cracked the door open to a long dream of reconciliation, yet left her battling memories of abandonment, hurt, and frustration. She glanced at Megan, whose supportive gaze gave her a hint of strength. Maybe we can try, but she hesitated, allowing the weight of her words to settle. You need to understand that it's not just about you or me anymore. This involves Lily now. The gravity of her statement settled into the space between them. Lily, blissfully unaware of the tension, tugged on Sarah's sleeve. Can Grandma come play, Mommy? The innocence of her daughter's question struck a deep chord, and for a moment, Sarah felt an overwhelming desire to protect that innocence. Before she could answer, Joel interrupted the charged moment. Sarah, what is happening? His tone sliced through the air, sharper than the cold wind outside. It's about family, Joel. Something you've never understood, Sarah replied, her heart pounding. She held her ground, facing him, refusing to shrink back. His eyes narrowed, spanning from her to her mother and back. This is ridiculous. You really want to let her back into your life? Someone who wasn't there when you needed her. She is here now. Sarah exclaimed, her voice rising with a mixture of anger and desperation. No one is perfect. Not you. Not me. Not her. But I want to try to give Lily a chance. The diner's energy shifted as patrons turned their attention to the raw confrontation unfolding before them. The air felt electric, anticipation brimming like a pot about to boil. Megan stepped up behind Sarah. Lily deserves more than the broken pieces of our past. We all do. Her voice was steady, a lighthouse guiding them through the storm. Joel's expression faltered momentarily but then hardened. This isn't some fairy tale, Sarah. You think just because she is here now, that it magically fixes everything? This is a mistake. Sarah felt her breath hitch, sensing the old patterns of blame trying to seep back in. Her mother, standing quietly, was the source of her resentment, but also of possibility. I'll decide what's a mistake for me, she said firmly. The moment hung in balance as thoughts tumbled in her mind, reminding her of all she'd endured. The fear, the worries about being a good mother, the drive to escape the shadows of dependency. Here, her mother said, stepping forward. I know I can't take back the years I missed, but I want to build a relationship with my granddaughter. I'll do whatever it takes to prove that I've changed. I'm taking responsibility for my mistakes. A heaviness lifted from Sarah's heart. She longed for a mother's love, even amidst the wound. Could forgiveness, remote as it seemed, beckon now? And what about Joel? She whispered, the concern creeping into her tone. I'm not here to control your choices. I'll respect your decisions no matter what they are, he said, but there was a vague bitterness that colored his acceptance. The words flowed through her, refreshing and sweet. Okay, she replied, looking into her mother's eyes, I'm willing to explore this. But trust will take time. Just then, Lily spoke up again, her childish curiosity cutting the tension like a hot knife through butter. Can we play now? Soft laughter filled the space, momentarily easing the strained atmosphere. Sarah knelt down, brushing back her daughter's hair. Let us take it slow. We can figure this out together. As the diner buzzed back to life around them, Sarah felt the threads of connection weaving tighter among the three women. In that moment, something deep transformed in her. No more pretending, Sarah declared, plucking up her courage. We are starting anew, and I won't let fear dictate my life anymore. The resolve in her voice started an emotional symphony amongst the diner's guests. Some nodded, some whispered words of encouragement. A chorus of acceptance formed, reinforcing her strength. She turned to Joel, feeling for the first time that she could stand tall without him. I won't be trapped again. I'll face what's next without your shadow hanging over me. His face fell, perseverance in his eyes mingling with disbelief and anger. But deep down, she understood that this was the moment of transformation they all needed. Her mother stepped in closer, bridging the divide. Together, we can forge something beautiful. The way she said it felt right, light glimmering in the cracks of their broken past. In that instant, fear began to dissolve, and glimmers of hope started to break free. The snow continued to fall outside, but inside, warmth blossomed. This was a new beginning, one taken step by step, towards healing and reconnection. As they embraced, a rush of emotion filled the air: love, forgiveness, and the promise of support. And in the heart of the diner, amidst the scents of coffee and pancakes, Sarah smiled radiantly, with purpose. It was no longer merely about surviving, it was about thriving, together. So, what would you do in Sarah's place? What would you choose? Join us in this journey, and let us stand together in the spirit of new beginnings. You need to subscribe now to not miss our next exclusive stories on transformation. This is the moment to show your support by hitting that like button now to feed the algorithm. And don't wait not even one more second. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful transformation.